Alright, what is good, folks? We have three huge movies dropping this summer: The Odyssey, Dune Part 3, and Spider-Man Brand New Day. A common feature of all of them is everyone's favourite actress, Zendaya. Or perhaps, she's not everyone's favourite. Now, I spend far too much time browsing X than is good for me, but there seems to be a growing swell of resentment towards her and the role she's cast in. Look, maybe I'm growing soft in my old age, but I used to be on those Xbox Live lobbies back in the day. I used to use 4chan. I've read and heard my fair share of wild shit. And even to this day, some of the YouTubers I watch toe the line a little bit, but there's always been this element of tongue-in-cheek about it, at least to me. But some of these posts are just fucking nasty, man. Yeah, I get people fish for interaction, like those who post about Margot Robbie or Sydney Sweeney being mid, and celebrities themselves seem duty-bound to say retarded shit constantly. But there appears to be genuine animosity towards Zendaya, animosity that stems largely from three reasons: overexposure, miscasting, and acting prowess. So why don't we break these down a little bit? We've got people crying online like, ugh, Zendaya again. I'm sick of seeing her everywhere. Why is she being cast in yet another movie? Well, when you actually look at it, she's only appeared in 8 major feature films since 2016, plus some voice work for 2 animated movies, and that's just one a year. And one could, quite rightly, argue that doesn't really equate to overexposure. She's an actress, like her job is to act. Of course, she has a prominent role in Euphoria as well, which, to be honest, I've seen like 2 minutes of it in total, and they were all certain scenes with Sydney Sweeney, so I'm probably not the one qualified to speak on it, but I will actually bring it up a little bit later. So why this sentiment? Well, my guess is to do with the prominence of these movies. The Greatest Showman, the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, Dune 1 and 2. These are massive fucking films that generate huge interest, and she's right there in the middle of them. She might not be the lead, but she's there. Still, it's not really an argument for being overexposed. That said, in 2026, she has got a load of stuff coming out, including the aforementioned movies. So yeah, it's certainly ramping up. But these aren't even out yet, and again, she's not the lead, so I don't understand people getting so butthurt about the amount of times they see her. And I'd argue, you can't even say she's all that prominent in the news either. Yeah, there's the odd story about AI-generated marriage photos or whatever, but largely she seems to keep things pretty private. She's not out there like dumbass Rachel Zegler just spouting complete nonsense and tanking her own movies. I don't do Instagram or any of that shit, so maybe she's everywhere over there. But surely that's your own algorithm feeding you Zendaya. I don't think there's some grand conspiracy by Meta to shove her down your throat. So I'm not buying it. Alright, the slightly tricky one to navigate. Is Zendaya miscast in these roles? Let's look at Mary Jane, or MJ, first. So as something of a purist myself, I can understand the argument for faithfulness to the source material. Mary Jane is white and a redhead. Zendaya is clearly neither of those. Is it the most egregious race swap in entertainment history? No, that will come next year. And with regards to Dune, does her look scream Fremen warrior? Not particularly. But I think one does have to look at it within the context of what Hollywood is all about. They do have diversity quotas to film. Yeah, it's not meritocratic and it's frankly damaging, but it is the path they've chosen to go down. And again, they could do far worse. I don't know. Her casting has never really struck me as forced like it does with so many race swap castings. I've always looked at it like the studios want to tap into the enormous audience she brings. Maybe I'm being hypocritical, but like where casting Papa Asiadu as Snape is clearly done to tick boxes and seriously risk bringing in stupid modern day politics into a fantasy show, which I'm sure HBO and the activists there are happy about. That's just not the feeling I get from Zendaya. That's not to say that's not what they're doing. Like I said, they have quotas to fill. Perhaps I've just been suckered by the whole white passing bullshit they like to employ to try to sell their movies. The argument can be made that it pulls one out of the movie when, within the context of a certain story being told in a certain time or period, or on a certain planet, like where a group of people are supposed to share a similar genetic makeup and you've randomly got people of all shades and colours, and I do think that's a fair argument to make. At the same time, colorblind casting has been a thing for a while. Shakespeare, for example, has had all manner of people play different roles. Like, just look at Denzel, sorry. He's played Macbeth, he's played Othello, he's performed in Richard III and Julius Caesar. Is there some kind of statute of limitations, like, after 500 years, who really gives a fuck? Or is it just Shakespeare's so universal, or a rite of passage for actors? I don't know, where do we draw the line on this? We all go into movies with our own preconceived ideas of what characters should look like, whether that's rooted in the source material or our own headcanon. And if Zendaya takes you out of the movie, then I get it. But I don't necessarily subscribe to it. As for Athena in the Odyssey, yeah, she doesn't look like a Greek goddess, but it's difficult to single her out when the entire cast is what it is. The whole ensemble is a total departure from any classical Greek paintings or texts or busts or whatever. At the same time, it's not a documentary, and Chris Nolan is clearly going for star power and ticking boxes over fidelity, which, yeah, it's his prerogative, and if you're a history nerd or a fan of Greek mythology, that might be enough to stop you enjoying the story. Look, I do think there is some weight to the whole miscasting argument, especially when viewed through an accurate to the source material lens, but this is Hollywood, baby, and they're going to do what they do, and while their devotion to diversity and inclusion is completely backwards, bigoted and regressive, that's what they've chosen to be. And they reap what they sow, losing millions upon millions upon millions of dollars. But that's not the case with Zendaya. In fact, of her major theatrical releases, none can be considered a bomb. Challenge is probably the closest you'll get, where it kind of flirts with breaking even. Actually, I lied, because she was in Space Jam 2 and that flopped. But you can't blame her for that. Blame the lack of interest and the flop master general himself. He has been flopping all over the court for decades. I blame LeBron James, as I do for all my problems. But with all that said, her movies have grossed nearly $4 billion worldwide. So if the general consensus is race swaps hurt the production, it doesn't seem to work that way with Zendaya. Now, as for her acting chops, it's probably the most subjective of these arguments. I mean, I've met people who love Sansa Stark in Game of Thrones, whereas personally I think Sophie Turner has zero range, and she's more wooden than a petrified forest. Gal Gadot is a horrendous actress. Jared Leto is fucking god-awful. Seth Rogen's just painful to watch. That slutty old crone with the grating voice whose name escapes me right now. Ruby Rose, who got moved to a non-speaking role in John Wick 2 because of her abilities. There's plenty of shite out there. Oh, Sarah Silverman. It just came to me there, Sarah Silverman. But yeah, her style is understated and kind of trying to play it cool, but it's hard to say she can't act when there's actual acclaim and even award nods for her role in Euphoria. Again, I haven't seen it, so I can't confirm nor deny it. And we all know awards are just a complete farce in Hollywood, but the sentiment seems genuine. So, like I say, it's subjective, and if you find her acting ability wanting, then you find it wanting. If it takes you out the movie, then that sucks. But I have sat through some complete dog shit, especially in the last 10 years, and I wouldn't have Zendaya high on my list of the most egregious offenders to the thespian arts. I mean, I wouldn't have her particularly low on it either, but whatever, she's fine. Maybe she'll even surprise me this year. Or maybe I should suffer through the ignominy of watching Euphoria to see her at her best. Nah. I think what we have to ask ourselves is, why does she keep getting cast? Well, there's 176 million reasons why. She brings with her a huge audience, and as long as these movies she's in continue to make money, they'll keep casting her. Plus, normies don't consider all this shit. I work with two people who genuinely love Rings of Power. Yeah, just no accounting for taste, I guess. Now, when I started this, I wasn't setting out to white knight for Zendaya or anything. I just wanted to look into the growing backlash, and for me, it doesn't feel that warranted. Yeah, you can get pissed she's being cast in these blockbusters, but she's a draw, whether we like it or not. I don't think calling her ugly on X is going to help change that fact. Also, you must have learning difficulties or be legally blind or something, because she ain't ugly. Don't be the over-emotional retard, because then you're no better than the idiots writing all this slop we have to watch. Anyway, I'm sure Zendaya is eternally grateful for this video. And folks, you better get used to her, because she ain't going nowhere. As always, appreciate you taking the time to watch. Leave us a comment down below with your thoughts. You excited for Zendaya's upcoming movies, or are you going to give them a miss? Thanks again for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Cheers.